Good morning. Good morning. At 10:55, I'm a little early. I'm just getting myself organized. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Getting myself organized here. Good morning. Good morning. Take your time. Get your notes. Get your paper. Get your coffee. We got a lot to talk about here. A lot on my agenda. Good morning. Good morning. Starting at 11 o'clock. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning on this July 20th. Good Saturday morning. Beautiful weather in the Northeast. I don't know where you are, but where I am is looking mighty good. Beautiful few days lately. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Come on in. I hope I'm clear. I got all the new technology. I hope it doesn't let me down. Right. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Come on in. Come on in. It's 10:58. Got a couple of minutes. Come on in. Hit that share button. Let somebody know that it's that time. We do this every Saturday morning. Tracy Berry McGee said, I'm clear. There you go. Good morning. Good morning. Let me know where you guys are from, too. Where are you coming from? Yeah, you're in the U.S. What state? You're out of the country. What country? Where are you? Let me know. I just, that's data. While I'm doing preliminary talking, I'm not in it yet. But I always say everything is data. Everything. There's not a thing. Just like everything is math, right? So everything is math. Everything is data, right? We got people coming in from all over the place. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Everything is data. I don't care what it is. This bottle of water is data. This lamp that I'm getting ready to shut off. We shut it off in bright needs. That's data. Like everything is data. And Tracy McGee, Tracy Berry McGee, I got that StreamYard working now. I had to plug into my router, right, instead of using Wi-Fi. So I think we good now, right? So again, folks, everything is data. So when you let me know where you're coming from, there's my man Phil Douglas. Then I know that then I have data. I know what regions are watching. Maybe I may find it on the West Coast. I don't have the numbers, and some of that is because it's early on the West Coast, 7:00 a.m. Who's gonna get up early and listen to Principal Kafele, right? But usually with data, you don't just accumulate data for the sake of accumulating data. If you're going to accumulate data, you're doing that so that you can do something with that data, right? So I'm just getting myself right here. So it's 11 o'clock. Let me give it a couple more seconds, and then I want to dive right in. I got so much on the agenda here today. Let me slide that right over there. I got so much, so I need to get into it. In fact, it's 11. You guys tuned in on time. Let's jump into it. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 8 of the virtual Assistant Principal Leadership Academy. Man, I'm glad to be here. I feel like I live for this. I'm planning. I'm literally planning this thing all week. Like when I end the broadcast on Saturday, I'm already conceptualizing the next week, and then on that Monday, I'm writing out my lesson. So here we got 3 pages that look like this. So it's a little ambitious. I probably should stop putting these together in the beginning of the week, and that way it won't be as ambitious, and I can do this short. Because you remember those of you that have been riding with me since the beginning, these were meant to be 30 minutes. At 11:30, I was supposed to cut it off, and that's it. But I couldn't do it because I got too much I want to give, too much I want to pour out. So you're here. So let's talk about some things. Today's topic, I'm in chapter 2 still, question 9 still, and this is a continuation from last week. I didn't write it the same way on the topic, but it's how do the teachers I supervise perceive me as an instructional leader. So again, how did the teachers that I supervise perceive me as an instructional leader? And we call that part 2. Now, here's the thing. As you all know, I do announcements first because there's pertinent things going on that you need to hear before I dive into the lesson. And do me a favor, don't allow yourself to say, well, let me bypass his announcements and jump on like later on, because the announcements tie into the lesson, particularly today, probably more so than anything I've done in the past with the announcements. So first and foremost, I got to announce this. The Assistant Principal 50, critical questions for meaningful leadership and professional growth. I gotta tell you this because this is available, right? So a lot of folks were upset for a while, but this is available. But I am noticing that it is moving quickly. So again, get your copies. It's been averaging on Amazon throughout the week between number 2 and number 5. Haven't hit that number 1 spot in a couple of weeks, but it's been number 2 to number 5 on the administrative top 100. So that means it's moving quickly. So get yourself a copy before the second printing sells out. Hopefully the publisher will print before that happens, but get it at ascd.org. principalkafele.com will link you to Amazon and ASCD, or you can go right to Amazon without going through me at amazon.org, and then get your copy. We'll talk about the other books later on. Secondly, I got to let you guys know I'm doing that Principal School Leadership Institute on July 15 and 16. So I just want you to go to my website, scroll down on the home page till you find School Leadership, 3rd Annual School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, and then register. It's a nominal fee, not too much. I do it with a partner. So it's 2 days, July 15 and 16. Will be on 3 hours in the morning, 9 to 12, both days, right? So it'll be worth your buck. This is not going to be the same content I do on Saturdays. This is principal leadership, and it's applicable for anybody that's in school leadership. July 15, 16. You might also want to register for the ASCD conference, which is free, on July 16 and 17. 16 and 17. So I'll be doing 2 things that day. I'll do my institute in the morning, and then I'm going to keynote the ASCD conference on July 16 that afternoon at 1 o'clock. So again, I'm the opening keynoter. It's virtual. It's free of charge. Just register. I don't know if I have it on my website or not. Go to scroll my page on Facebook or Twitter, but Facebook is probably easier because it's near the top. Register, and I'll see you then. Lastly, with this, subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. School Leadership Thoughts is what it's called. School Leadership Thoughts. You got everything you need. My interview videos, videos on just effective school leadership. It's just got a plethora of information. School Leadership Thoughts, YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Just hit subscribe, and then every time I put a new video up, you'll get it. Now, let's move on. 2 weeks ago, and I'm into the content now. 2 weeks ago, I deviated from my regular lesson, and we spent the entire hour talking about social justice education. You'll recall that 2 weeks ago. And I thought it was a very healthy discussion, and a lot of you gave me feedback saying you needed that at that time. So that was a good thing. So now, here we are. Yesterday was historic. And it kind of became historic for several reasons, which I'm not even going to get into. But I'm going to say this. Yesterday was Juneteenth. I'm not going to spend my time talking about Juneteenth because I got too much that I want to talk about with instructional leadership. But I will say this. Prior to this year, to Juneteenth 2020, on June 19th, there's a whole lot of folks that didn't know that Juneteenth existed. There's a whole lot of folks that may have known it existed, but didn't know what it was. So here we have this Juneteenth, and because it came in the time that it came, so it had a different context this time, it took off. A lot of people out there celebrating, commemorating Juneteenth. That's a good thing, right? So those of you that don't know Juneteenth, I'm not going to do history today. Learn it. Learn what this is because it has significance for your leadership. I got to say that again. It has significance for your leadership. It has implications for your leadership, right? Because we talk about Independence Day, and I would also encourage you, read the post I wrote this morning called Juneteenth, Independence Day in Frederick Douglass. It's a little long, but read it anyway, right? Check that out. And that'll be everything that I would want to talk about now, but I won't. But again, Juneteenth, in terms of what it is, has implications for your classroom under the umbrella of social justice education. But by the same token, because the president was speaking in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street became something that was in the news, became a topic of discussion. I'm not going to get into that either, but I will say this. Prior to 1921, you had this just flourishing area of Tulsa called Greenwood, where you had all these businesses. It was, because of segregation, you had self-sufficiency, where you had an abundance of retail stores, an abundance of supermarkets, an abundance of various different stores of retail stores, which I said before. Here's what I was looking for. You had an abundance of banks. You had banks there. You had movie theaters there. You had dry cleaners, you had laundromats, and you had a school system, right? So all of this, because of segregation, self-sufficiency, but because of racism and a racial massacre, the entire section was burned down to ashes. The only thing that remained was a church. That's it. So it has implications for your students, particularly under social justice education. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. You gotta know Black Wall Street. See, I've known Black Wall Street since I became a reader of African American history back in 1984. But now a large segment of the world, a large segment of America is catching up. And folks are saying, wow, I didn't know there was a Black Wall Street. There was one in North Carolina as well, in Durham. I didn't know that there was a Black Wall Street. I didn't know that there was this self-sufficient, self-sustaining section in Tulsa where Black folks had retail outlets, had banks, had supermarkets, had laundromats, had dry cleaners, and 6 residents own their own private planes, I might add with that as well, right? Had movie theaters, where all of this, and the dollar never left the community. It exchanged hands within the community anywhere from, say, 35 to 100 times without having to leave the community. As educators, particularly those of you who have Black children, but not confined to Black children, because your non-Black children need to know the same thing. So as educators, this has got to be a part of your repertoire, right? This all falls under the umbrella of social justice education, because here we're talking about history and the relationship between who your students are in your classrooms and their historical foundation, right? So I'm gonna leave that right there. I want to slide that in. I'm still in my intro, so I want to slide that in. But then there was one more thing. This was a historic week. There was a Supreme Court decision that protects LGBTQ workers from workplace discrimination, right? So that happened this week. That has implications for what you do as a leader. That has implications for who your teachers are in the classroom as it relates to social justice education. And as I always say with social justice education, and as I posted yesterday, social justice education is not an add-on. It's not a thing like, we'll do math, we'll engage in math, I should say, we'll engage in language arts, we'll engage in science, we'll engage in social studies. Now let's go to social justice. No, that's not what that is. Social justice education is woven into the fabric of everything you do, everything you say, everything you teach. It's woven into the mathematics. It's woven into the science. It's woven into the social studies. It's woven into the language arts. It's woven into the discussions. It's woven into the PE and health. It's woven into the electives. It's woven into everything because it has application for everything that you do. So I wanted to start with that. And then last but certainly not least, I always tell y'all what I'm wearing. Cleveland Buckeyes. I got a few people that kind of predict what I'm gonna wear each Saturday, and they always get it wrong, but it's always a Negro League shirt. The Cleveland Buckeyes, another Negro League team. And I'm gonna tell someone who's maybe first time on with me this 18-week academy This is what I wear to just celebrate, commemorate the Negro League, some of the best baseball players that ever played baseball, but were denied an opportunity to play in the major leagues because for the sole reason, the singular reason that they were black, that they were African American. So then leagues were formed for them to play against one another. So there's a couple of companies that I use where I buy up everything they got. In terms of the different teams to just wear them. And I happen to wear them as the part of the branding of my Saturday broadcast virtual assistant principal leadership academy. So with that said, I'm ready to jump into today's lesson. With how much time did I spend? I only spent 12 minutes. We good, y'all. Y'all can hang with me, right? So here we go. The academy overview, the overarching question, as I say every week, is does my assistant principalship benefit my school academically? That's the overarching question. That's the question for you to ask yourself literally every day while you're an assistant principal. And then when you become a principal, for you to ask yourself as it relates to the assistant principals that you supervise, does their assistant principal leadership benefit my school, our school academically? Right? Is there a correlation between their leadership and the academic success, the academic performance, the academic progress of the students in the school? Right? If you're looking at me now, I got a mirror up for you. And if that mirror is saying to you that you've got to make some adjustments, that you've got to tweak the way you go about leadership, because yes, you're effective at doing what you do, but it doesn't necessarily correlate to the academic performance, the academic growth and development of children, then you know that you've got some things you've got to adjust toward making that happen, right? So with that said, I gave you a parting question last week. I said last week's parting question is, how will I better align the perceptions I have of myself as an instructional leader with the perceptions that staff have of me as an instructional leader? So that was the question I asked you to ponder over for the last 7 days, right? What is the perception of yourself relative to the perception that staff have of you? Do they align, right? So that was last week's parting question. Today's topic: how do teachers I supervise perceive me as an instructional leader? Part 2. So what I'm doing, I'm kind of combining that with just just in your face talk on classroom equity. So I'm kind of merging two things together here, right? So just work with me, get your pens ready. Those of you that write those notes and make those charts, I appreciate that. So I'll try to be as clear as I can be, so that you can get all those notes down. So I left you last week with this powerful question, and I want to start off again with that same question. The question read, do I ensure that my staff utilize a variety of instructional strategies that take into consideration the different learning styles, ability levels, social, emotional needs of my learners in student-centered, culturally responsive, and culturally relevant and equitable learning environments? I asked you that question last week, and then we got into some of it. We started talking about instructional strategies and juxtaposed with different learning styles, right? And then we talked about ability levels as it relates to you as supervisor, as it relates to you as assistant principal. And then we even talked a little bit about social emotional needs. But I left off there. Now I want to go into the latter part, which is the culturally responsive, culturally relevant, equitable learning environments. So with that, I construct these with a series of questions, and I'm not going to deviate from that today, right? So I got a question for you, and the question is, I want to compare an equality mindset. So we're looking at two different mindsets of a classroom teacher, two different mindsets of the assistant principal. So the equality mindset versus the equity mindset. So here's my first question. What is an equality mindset? I want you to just think about that for a second. What does that mean? If you're a classroom teacher, if you're a building administrator, if you're the administrator in that building, you're one of the assistant principals, I'm asking you, What does it mean to have this equality mindset, right? What would that look like? And I'm going to answer my own question, but I want you to just kind of think about that for a second. An equality mindset, what does that look like, right? So let's dive into it. See that equality mindset person, that's that one that's going to just treat everything and everybody the same. So regardless of if there are youngsters who are here, there are youngsters who are here, there are youngsters who are here, youngsters who are here, that equality mindset says, I'm going to treat you equally, right? As opposed to, and I'm going to approach you equally. I'm wearing an equal or equality lens toward making that connection with you, right? So think about that teacher that may deliver a lecture, right? An auditory lecture. That's an equality approach. Quite frankly, anybody that's on these Zoom presentations where we don't do, or Facebook and Twitter Live where we don't do breakouts, those are equality based, right? Because I can't engage you individually. I can't even do breakouts using this platform, right? So it's equality. And we know that with equality, there are people who lose out. There are people who suffer because we're not meeting the needs of everybody that's there. So equality is a liability in a school, in a classroom. Equality is the goal, but equality cannot be the process, right? Equality cannot be the strategy, right? So I'm asking you the question: what is an equality mindset? What does that mean to you, right? And I'm reading the responses as I can. You know, they move kind of quick. The second, what is an equity mindset? What does that mean? What is an equity mindset? And by the way, I haven't said this all day. Hey, Facebook, hit that share button for me. I didn't type it today. I said I don't need to keep doing that. Hit that share button for me, somebody on Facebook, because there's an AP out there, there's a principal out there, there's an assistant superintendent out there, there's a superintendent out there, there's an aspiring administrator out there that needs to be here. Right? They may be somewhere watching the news, watching CNN, watching Fox, watching C-SPAN, whatever it is they watch. It's going to be the same cycle all day long. Come on here and get some of this information so that you can go back and take your game to another level. So hit that share button, hit that retweet button so that we can make sure that we got people watching live. I know you can watch the tape, the video during the week, but I want you to get some of this thunder because I'm getting ready to ratchet it up because I'm getting into what I'm doing now. So then that second question, what is an equity mindset? What is that? What does that mean, right? What does that equity mindset mean? See, that equity mindset, to give you the short version, because I'm gonna give you the intense version in a little while. That's I recognize individuals. I'm not looking at a collective anymore. See that equality mindset? They see it. You see a collective, right? It's just this one monolith. But that equity mindset, I see that student and that student and this student and this student and that student. And I recognize that no two of them are alike. No two of them learn differently. No two of them necessarily will be able to perform optimally with the same instructional strategies. No two of them have the same social emotional needs, right? So I can go on and on, right? So with that equity mindset, I'm looking at the individual and I'm appreciating the individual. I'm respecting the individual. And therefore, I'm proceeding in terms of process with the individual in mind, not as this monolithic collective of everybody as one, right? Next question. Is equity a priority in my school? Right? And I'm not even going to try to answer that one. I'm going to let you answer that one. Is equity a priority in my school? Right? So I want you to just think about your school. Is equity a priority there? Does it matter there? Equity? Is it a priority in your school? Like, so I want you to just think about your school for a moment without being judgmental. I just want you to think of your school and ask yourself the question, is equity a priority in my school? Does it matter? Is it a conversation? Is it an approach? Is it the philosophy? Right? Does it represent who we are? Is equity a priority in my school? But here's the natural question to apply to tie to it. Is equity a priority of my leadership? See, and that's really the question, because how can equity be a priority of your school if equity is not a priority of your leadership? And please spare me of pointing the finger at a district office, right? At a superintendent. Well, they haven't made it a priority, so it's difficult for us. Don't spare me of that. Don't even bring that in my direction, right? Because let me tell you something about my leadership. And folks on this thread who may know a little something, as they would say outside, something about my leadership. You know, I wasn't thinking about central office. I mean, it got me into trouble every now and then, but you know, I wasn't thinking about central office. My focus was on my school and the needs of my school. And if central office was running counter to the needs of my school, I had to still put my energy, invest my energy into that school. So if I felt, to use as an example, that equity needed to be a priority of my leadership, but that wasn't the priority of the district, guess what we were doing in my school, right? My leadership is what matters. So I'm gonna ask the question again: is equity a priority of my leadership? Right? I'm asking you, and I'm specifically asking assistant principals, obviously, because I want to know, you know, just based on what you do, what you may have been assigned. Like a young lady wrote on my Twitter page to, it was either last night while I was asleep or this morning, because I saw it when I got up, and it says she interviewed. Maybe she's on here right now. She interviewed and she talked all the right stuff about instructional leadership. This broke my heart. And I told her, she said all the right things about instructional leadership in her interview as an assistant principal. And they told her, look, this sounds good, but that's not what we need. They told her we need a disciplinarian. Man, that hurt. That like stung, man. You know, on an interview, and you tell her we need a disciplinarian. No, you don't. You need an instructional leader, because as you have an instructional leader, the instructional leadership, in conjunction with the rest of the leadership team and in conjunction with the rest of staff in partnership, will correct the discipline problems. See, so in this case, in that particular school, and I'm not beating up on the school because I don't know where the school, I don't even know what state or what country is in. All I know is this woman wrote this. I don't even know her name. But I do know this, that they're trying to correct discipline through the wrong lens. They're trying to put band-aids on big problems, right? They're trying to put band-aids on diseases, right? They're trying to put band-aids on viruses and cancers and so forth, right? So what I'm saying is, the problem is not discipline. The problem is macro. It's culture. It's the culture of the building which gives license to these behaviors. So I don't need someone that's going to be ready to deal with discipline. I need someone that's going to come in there and assist and facilitate the process of enhancing the climate and the culture of the school. That's what I want. And that will take care of the discipline. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? So again, it begs the same question. Is equity a priority of my leadership? Oh man, that's the question. That's the question, right? So let me keep going. Next question. If so, what is the evidence? Right? Again, if so, what's the evidence? So if equity is a priority of your leadership, I'm asking you, prove it. Show me the money. What's the evidence? That's key. There's got, and see, I'm not looking for you to give me external evidence. I'm just talking about what you got up here that says yes, right? That equity is a priority of my leadership, and here's how, right? But now let's tie this into what I said about perception, because that's really where we are in this particular phase of the academy, teacher perception of our leadership. What would be, and this I'm throwing this question in for those of you who are writing. This is like not one of my listed questions, but you can throw it in there anyway. What would be the perception of you and your leadership from staff as it relates to who you are when we talk about equity? You see why that's not one of the written ones, because written it wouldn't have come out with all them extra words, right? So again, as it relates to staff, what would be their perception of who you are relative to your leadership within an equity context? See, that matters, because you could sit up here and write on the thread about how strong you are in terms of equity in your school, but then staff says something different, right? So we want to make sure that they're aligned, that whomever you claim to be, that it's aligned with who staff perceive you to be as it relates to equity. Let me keep going. Next, what role does my leadership play toward reinforcing a teacher equity mindset? Let me read that again. What role does my leadership play toward reinforcing a teacher equity mindset? In other words, I'm asking you the question: is that the conversation? Is this what you guys are talking about in that pre-observation conference, in that post-observation conference, or just that conference, right? Is this what we're talking about? See, so what role do you play toward ensuring that equity is a part of the reality, the experience of being a student in that classroom? I don't mean compartmentalizing equity. I don't mean categorizing equity. Equity is infused. Equity is incorporated into all aspects of that classroom. So what role do you play toward that incorporation? Last question in this regard: how am I being perceived by staff as a proponent of equitable practices? That makes me think that I actually had that question that I tried to create earlier. It's actually written. How, and notice it has less words. How am I being perceived by staff as a proponent of equitable practices? In other words, does staff see me as an equity educator, as an equity leader, right? Of having an equity mindset toward my collegial relationship with staff, right? So I gave you those as preliminary questions. It's 11:30 now, 11:29. Now what I want to do is break this down. I want to break it down now, right? So now let's look at this equality mindset first. The equality mindset. Here you are, you the leader, right? And when you guys see me picking up my phone, I'm just checking these platforms here. See that equal. I'm talking about the potential of what happens in a classroom as it relates to first equality. So the first potential for is student individuality and identity obscurity. That was a mouthful. I gotta get that to you again. In an equality mindset classroom, there is always the potential, and that's the key word, potential, because I don't ever want to paint with a broad brush. There's always the potential for student individuality and identity obscurity. So who I am as an individual becomes obscure because in that equality classroom, I'm lumped with everybody. But who I am relative to my identity, right? Whether it be me in terms of my name, whether it be me relative to my race, whether it be me relative to ethnicity, whether it be me relative to culture, it becomes obscure. And now I'm lumped in there together. Let me give you an example, right? I'm filled with examples because I've done this work. I don't operate on theory. I've walked it. Let me give you this example. I'm gonna try to keep this brief. I have worked in schools where teachers have said to me, and maybe I said this back in week one, so I'm being repetitive, but a lot of you weren't with me in week one. You learned of this broadcast later. But here's the thing. I have done workshops, seminars with teachers where there have been teachers in the room, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but there have been teachers in the room who became very passionate according to the following. Hey, Principal Kafele, hold on a minute. And I'm gonna try to beat them in this one. Principal Kafele, wait a minute. Why are we having this conversation about race? Why are we having this conversation about diversity? Why are we having this conversation about ethnicity? I don't see the need to have this conversation. Now, this is somebody in an audience of teachers where the superintendent asked me to have this conversation, but a teacher has become passionate, right? It has become unnerved about this conversation, although I was contracted to have it. So why are we having this conversation, Principal Kafele? Because look, when I'm in my classroom and I close that door, and I'm just emulating the teacher now with this energy. So when I'm in that classroom and I close that door, I don't see black child, white child, Latino child, Asian child. I don't see that. And teacher gets all excited. Sometimes I'm sitting there like just taking it in, trying to be neutral. But the teacher, I don't see that. All I see are my children. All I see are my babies. Why do we have to have this conversation? I got like 3 teachers in my head as I'm saying this, y'all. Why do we have to have this conversation talking about the racial background of the child, the ethnic background of the child, the cultural black background of the child? I just see children. That's all I see, right? And I stand there, y'all. I don't cross my arms. I just stand there. And I don't look like I'm judging. I just stand there and I take it in because I don't want my body language and my facial expression to taint any of this message. I don't want it to fuel anything that the teacher is saying. And typically it's a woman, right? And let me be very specific. I'm sugarcoating. It's always a white woman, right? Always, 100% of the time when I am confronted with that, right? So that's part of my reality as a presenter. That deals with some very tough topics at times, right? When I'm invited to do so. So now here's my response. I got 2 responses and 2 that I want to share with you. Response number 1. Hey teacher, and I'm calm like this. Hey teacher, I heard you and I hear you. I applaud you. That's very noble of you, right? That you just see your babies in the classroom. I'm not mad at you. See, I'm being very calm. That's people skills, right? So I understand where you're coming from, teacher, but let me give you this food for thought. I want you to think about this. I want you to consider this. That artificial environment that you've created in your classroom, when your dismissal bell rings, whatever time it rings, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, whatever it is, your babies, as you call them, your youngsters, your scholars, your learners, your students, they're going outside to go home. And you remember, teacher, guess what? That environment out there is not going to be like the one you created in here. That environment out there will recognize their identity. It will recognize those differences. It will see it. And how do we know that? Because in the history of this country, it has been more than evident. Right, just by the fact that I'm wearing this shirt, it says Cleveland Buckeyes, a Negro League team, because black players couldn't play in the major leagues at that time. Right, it's going to be, and that's not something that's solely historic; it's contemporary. So they're going to be seen, and the question, therefore, teacher, becomes: will your students be able to navigate those rough waters that see them for who they are and what they are? Because if you're not participating in the preparation to navigate those waters, then they're going to go out there naive, thinking that everybody else is going to see them as their babies too, that they're all the same too. And now they're not going to be prepared for when folks see them as different and thereby impose their own biases against them. That's number 1, teacher. And I'm saying to you, assistant principal, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're in an assistant principal leadership academy. So now, as it relates to your relationship with your staff, That teacher might be on your staff. That teacher may not be white. It might be black. It might be Latino. It could be anybody. But that teacher could be on your staff. And the question is, are you going to allow that to play itself out with those 25 youngsters being treated as if they were all one generic vanilla or chocolate, whatever it is, monolithic group of young people? Where do you intervene if equity is a priority of your leadership, right? So that's crucial. I'm just moving my comments here. I'm trying to catch some of what y'all are saying, right? So now that's number one, but I got something else for. See that I got two responses for, two in particular. The second one is, hey teacher, why are you lumping them together and denying them of their racial, ethnic, cultural identity and heritage? Why are you doing that and thereby suppressing it, as opposed to accentuating it, celebrating it? You know, yesterday, the past several days, since the president announced he was going to Tulsa, and then all the discussion about Black Wall Street, I was so happy that finally the world was learning about Black Wall Street. I said, because watch this, y'all, that has been suppressed. There were people on my Facebook page all day yesterday, it had a lot of shares. So I'm nosy. I go into the shares and read what the people are writing on the shared post. That's what I do. So I'm reading what people are saying, and it's a lot of Oklahomians, if that's what you call it. I made up a word. Y'all call yourself Oklahomian, whatever it is, right? People that live in Oklahoma. So I'm reading on their thread. It probably is Oklahomians, right? I'm reading on their thread, and they're saying, I went to school in Oklahoma. I went to school in Tulsa. I never heard this in school. I'm reading this all day on my shared responses yesterday. So people from Oklahoma in school in Tulsa, not even knowing that there was a Black Wall, a thriving economy in Tulsa called Black Wall Street. Them Black folks didn't need anybody outside of the boundaries of Black Wall Street, of that Greenwood area, because they had everything in-house. And now you got people who didn't know. So now let's go back to, you got people in 2020 that did not know that it existed, and then it was burned down to ashes in 1921. So my point, though, is this. Let's go back to that classroom now. That teacher that's excited in my seminar, right? And other teachers clapping her up, I might add. And now here's this teacher. Hey, teacher, why are you suppressing their identity? Why are you not celebrating their identity? Why are you not accentuating their identity? Why are you not illuminating their identity? Why? And I don't mean solely for the sake of them, but I mean for the sake of everyone in that classroom. Because I don't just want that Black student to be introduced to who he or she is historically, ethnically, culturally. I want that student sitting next to him that may not be Black to be armed with the same information. That's how we change the world. Because I promise you, you know this already. This just the kid up in Jersey City, New Jersey, reinforcing it for you. There are people in cities across America who are in these streets marching right now as I yell into my computer, who have been awakened. They didn't know. They're marching across the Brooklyn Bridge yesterday. Thousands of them, primarily white. And I know a lot of them didn't know this history. Just confining it to the two things: Juneteenth, 250,000 enslaved people not knowing they were free for the past 2.5 years. Black Wall Street, with an economy doing segregation within. You got people out here, they didn't learn this in school. Nobody introduced them to this. The teacher didn't know. The principal didn't know, and their teacher didn't know, and their teacher didn't know, and their teacher didn't know. So it goes back generations. So no one knew, and it was not included in a curriculum. And now all of a sudden, 2020, oh my God, an epiphany. Black Wall Street. banks in a black community that was owned and operated by black people. Movie theaters in the black community was owned and operated by black people. Retail shops, clothing stores, supermarkets, laundromats, dry cleaners. They even had their own school system, owned and operated by black people in 1920 and prior to, before 1921 in the massacre. Oh my God. That's not consistent with what I already thought I knew and how I think. That's creating cognitive dissonance. I didn't know that. So 6 residents own private jets. You see the point I'm making, folks? So now I'm saying to you, if you're that supervisor, because I'm not going to lose my focus. If you're that supervisor, you're that assistant principal, and that teacher's in your building, because I'm telling you, that teacher emerges in a lot of my sessions every time a superintendent or a principal asks me to come to their school and talk about diversity. That teacher's not there. I don't see that teacher if I'm not on that topic, right? So that teacher doesn't, word I was looking for, that teacher doesn't reveal themselves, right? But if they ask me to come in and talk about diversity, that teacher is going to emerge at some point in that 6-hour discussion and get mad at me and get passionate about me. I mean, passionate toward me about her topic. And now now I'm sidetracked and I got to deal with that because there are others in the room going like this here. Why? Because they simply don't know. So therefore, I'm not going to beat up on a teacher that hasn't been exposed. Why do I expect you to know this stuff? We got to be taught. So now I'm saying to you, assistant principal, what are you going to do with the information I'm giving you if it's new to you? What are you going to do with it? See, you got to use it now. You've got to apply it now. You've got to transform because you've got to make sure that equity is occurring in your classroom. Oh my God, it's 11:45 and I'm not anywhere near finished. Oh my God. Y'all, somebody better cheer me on and say, keep going, Kafele. We can see, because sometimes y'all say, I stay on here all day. You better put that up here today, right? So here's the thing. Let me go to the next one. In that equality mindset, B. Holmes says, say that. I'm on that equality mindset. I got 6 points to make it. I'm on the second one, right? I ain't even get the equity yet. Culturally neutral, culturally generic relations with students. See, in that equality mindset classroom, there's that potential for culturally neutral, culturally generic relations with students. See, I'm saying here that teacher, not the teacher I referred to before, any teacher, you can't see them all being the same. They're bringing their own cultural background. That can't be denigrated. That can't be disrespected, right? They're just bringing something different. I am certain that my approach is different from a lot in terms of professional development. I'm not talking about some speaker, some motivator, some activist. I'm just talking about professional development. I am quite certain that I'm a little bit different than most of the people you listen to in terms of the way I deliver, the way I'm dressing. I mean, just the whole vibe. I'm sure that I am very different from a lot of the others that you listen to. And the reason is I decided because I'm going to be my authentic self. That's why, because I could tone this down and I could just talk to you like this and say to you that culturally neutral, culturally generic, let me stop using my hands, culturally generic relations with students. I could talk to you like that. I could keep it plain. But then the problem with that is I'm no longer being myself. I'm being what somebody else would want me to be, perhaps, right? Let me be myself. So I'm just as intelligent, just as informed, just as researched as anybody else, but I deliver it my way. I'm talking about culturally in that equality-based classroom. We're talking about those culturally neutral, culturally generic relations with students where teacher wants youngster to be like teacher. So now I'm teacher. Look, the way I am. what I bring culturally to the table. That's where we need to get you. See, no, that's wrong. That cannot be allowed. That cannot be permissible. It's you respecting, appreciating, learning, getting to know the cultural attributes of young people, right? Of your students, and quite frankly, perhaps even of your peers in that school. We don't need people to having to acquiesce and having to suppress who they are. Be you. Particularly if culturally that's what's driving you, right? Let me go to the next one. Culturally neutral, culturally generic pedagogy. Ah, man, I got to give y'all an example. Look here, y'all. I'm going overtime today. I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going overtime. I'm going to ask that you hang out here with me. Stay with me. Of course, you can watch the videos later, but I want you to stay with me live, man. It's early in the day, so let's get into it here. I'm going to be on this for a minute, right? So that's slang for some. That's slang, right? Someone might not know that. For a minute means I'm gonna be on here for a while. See, in the old days, a minute means it's just gonna be a minute, 60 seconds. But now a minute means I could be on here for another hour. So here we go. Culturally neutral, culturally generic pedagogy. Let me give you an example. I use this example from time to time. When I travel from city to city, when I back in the on the road days, I would go to the airport, fly there, get my rental car, drive to the hotel, next morning drive to the facility, drive back to the airport, and then go on to the next city. But some of those cities have cultural relevance for me. I want you to hear me now. Some of those cities have cultural relevance for me, to the extent that I can't just go to the city, speak in the facility, and then go back to the airport and off to the next city, because there's because of the cultural relevance in that particular town. It's like a magnet pulling me to that town beyond that school or that conference, whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna run off this list real quick for you to give you an idea what I mean. When I'm in either these cities or cities near them, I have to plan otherwise. I have to make certain detours so that I can get to visit the cultural components, aspects, historical aspects of these cities. So as you hear these cities, I'm just going to give you like a couple of words to tell you what I mean when I mention these cities. When I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, I have to go to the Woolworths where the sit-in movement started on February 1st, 1960, and then North Carolina A&T, where the Greensboro those four young college students had gone to school. When I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, I got to take in all the Dr. King history. When I'm in Selma, Alabama, or near Selma, I got to take in the whole Selma March to Montgomery, the Edmund Pettus Bridge. When I'm in Birmingham, I got to go to the 16th Street Baptist Church, where the four little girls had lost their lives in the bombing. When I'm in Montgomery, I got to go to that bus stop where Rosa Parks boarded that bus. When I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, I got to find some Crispus Attucks information. When I'm in Rochester, New York, I got to go visit where Frederick Douglass lived. When I'm in Dorchester County, Maryland, or in the vicinity, I got to go around where Harriet Tubman grew up, where she lived. When I'm in where she was born. When I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, I got to go to Central High School, where the Little Rock Nine had been escorted by the U.S. military to into the building and within classrooms, going from class to class. When I'm in Hampton, Virginia, I got to go to Hampton University, where Booker T. Washington was a student. Right. When I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, I got to go to the National Civil Rights Museum, where Dr. King, where he was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel, is become a museum. I got to go there to that site, right, to take that in. When I'm in Money, Mississippi, I got to go where Emmett Till was killed. When I'm in Rouville, Mississippi, I got to go to the grave site and the birthplace of Fannie Lou Hamer. When I'm in Tuskegee, Alabama, I got to go to Moulton Field, where the Tuskegee Airmen were trained to fight in World War II. When I'm in Harlem, I gotta go to the site where Malcolm X was assassinated, where Marcus Garvey had his meetings, and it's so much in Harlem. When I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, I gotta go where Malcolm was born. When I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we just talked about it, Black Wall Street. When I'm in Rosewood, Florida, another massacre, 1923. When I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, I got to go to home to Medgar Evers. When I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, I got to go to the courthouse where the Dred Scott decision was made. When I go to Topeka, Kansas, I got to go to the school where Linda Brown attended school, which speaks to which is a part of the Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. So here's my point in giving you this long list. I'm saying to you that these cities have certain relevance to me, whereas there are other cities, they may have relevance to me that are not cultural, but it doesn't have a cultural relevance, right? It just may have some kind of relevance, whatever it is, right? Could be some sports team, right? What could be some entertainer was born there that I happen to like that was not African American. But I'm talking about in terms of that cultural relevance, these cities, they draw me like a magnet. I have to go to these places. That Central High School, for example, where the Little Rock Nine attended, I went into that school. I spoke in that school, right? And every time I'm in Little Rock, I just go there and stand in front of the school and just take in the energy of 1957 when those 9 students were there, because it has relevance. So what's this got to do with you? Everything. I'm saying to you, your students are looking for themselves. See, when I visit those cities, I'm seeing me. Because I see the relationship between it and who I am as a Black man. So I'm saying to you, it's the same thing. Your youngster is looking for him and herself in the lesson, on the page, throughout the experience of being a student in your classroom. Hey, assistant principal, what does your conversation sound like with that student as it relates to that student feeling like everything I'm learning is applicable to who I am? It's got to be culturally relevant. Your youngsters got to see self on the page. Your youngsters got to see self in the lesson. Your youngsters got to see self on the walls. Your youngsters got to see self within the overall experience. It matters. Let me keep moving, y'all. So potential in that equality mindset classroom, there's the potential for unhealthy climate and culture. And when I say climate and culture, when I say climate, I'm talking about the mood of the school. When I say culture, I'm talking about the lifestyle of the school, the overall, how are we living in this space amongst each other? What is the mood? So when those first 4, the student individuality and identity obscurity, culturally neutral, culturally generic relations with students, culturally neutral, culturally generic pedagogy, and potential for potential for unconscious, implicit, and or explicit biases exist in that equality-based classroom. I'm sorry, I skipped that one. Let me say it again. Potential for unconscious, implicit, and or explicit biases to exist in that equality-based classroom, because we have lumped them together as this one monolithic group. So now the detail, the individuality, the identities of each youngster in the classroom gets lost. It gets obscure. So bias has a place to grow, to breed and to grow, or breathe and to grow in that environment, because of that equality-based approach to instruction in that classroom, that equality-based approach to children in that classroom. So I'm saying to you, those yield to an unhealthy climate and culture, and they also yield to ongoing behavioral infractions and disciplinary referrals. So those first 4 culminate into, I promise you, an unhealthy, toxic climate culture, and ongoing behavioral infractions and disciplinary referrals. Now, here's what I'm gonna do, because I've been thinking in real time. I have more to present than I've already presented, right? I mean, I've got that much written. So I don't even want to deal with that right now, because that's going to take me another hour. I dealt with the equality mindset. So when I come back next week, we're going to deal with the equity mindset. Right. And then that'll take me another hour, and then we'll be where we need to be, as opposed to begging you guys to stay on here for another hour. So let me do this. I got a parting question for you. And the parting question is, do the teachers that I supervise perceive that classroom equity is an inherent component of my overall instructional leadership? Let me say that again. Do the teachers that I supervise perceive that classroom equity is an inherent component of my overall instructional leadership? Now, of course, I didn't talk about equity yet. I'm going the whole hour next week, nothing but equity, right? And then I'm not adding any other subjects but that. And then we'll tie the equity and the equality together to make that distinction clearly between the two. So let me wrap it up real quick. Number one, once again, get your hands on this. It's moving like hotcakes. The Assistant Principal 50, anywhere education books are sold, but do me a favor, don't stop there. Add this to your library. The Aspiring Principal 50, right? This is for new assistant and aspiring administrators. So get the two. They really go hand in glove. Get them both. Don't stop there. Get the Principal 50 as well, right? So you're preparing for the principalship, or you're already a principal, so you got this to go with it. And then you might as well just go ahead and get the fourth one. Is my school a better school because I lead it, right? The question in and of itself, you can spend hours just pondering over that, right? So that's the 4. Now, to the fathers out there, happy Father's Day to you. Live it up big, even during a global pandemic. Just make sure it's a strong, productive, yet safe day. Next week, I told you what we're doing. I told you the books. I told you subscribe to my channel, School Leadership Institute. Subscribe to that. I'm sorry, School Leadership Thoughts. School Leadership Thoughts. School Leadership Institute is my institute on July 15 and 16. Register for that. Just go to my homepage, register. Go to ascd.org and register for their conference. I'm the opening keynoter on July 16, so I'm working double time that day. And then also visit principalkafele.com for additional resources. Again, principalkafele.com. Lastly, as I always do, we're in a pandemic, folks. Wear your mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing, sneeze and cough right here. Don't sneeze in your hand and then you trying to shake my hand later, right? So make sure you're doing all the right things as it relates to living within a global pandemic. And then finally, and then I'm out, diet and exercise, eat right. I'll be transparent. I put on a few pounds, right? But I'm getting ready to lose them, right? It's hard when you are adhering to stay-at-home orders. But I'm getting ready to take care of that. But I'm gonna put in 3 miles today, regardless, right? So make sure your diet is tight. Leave the junk alone. Make sure you're putting in that cardio work. So do your 1 mile. Everybody can't do 3. Do your 2 miles. Do your 3 miles. Everybody can't run. Walk it. Everybody can't walk fast. Walk the pace you can do it. Just put it in. That's all I'm saying. You ain't in no Olympics. You're not competing against anybody. You just want to sustain your life. So just do the things that you're supposed to do. So with that said, look here, y'all. I appreciate you checking in for week 8. Week 8 is in the books, and we going on to week 9 next week. I've got to stop writing these long, ambitious agendas. I put 2 hours into a 1-hour presentation. I saw that was impossible. Watch the videos for those of you that need to see it again. I see you guys in cyberspace. Appreciate you all. Have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. And then we cock that fist all the way back and count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Bam. I see you guys next Saturday.